All right.
Okay. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hello, everybody from different countries, from different time zones, and those who are watching this recording. Thank you for being here. My name is Lela Machaidze, and I'm professional project manager in this field for more than 17 years, working for different sectors, private, public, commercial. So anything related to public, anything related to project management is of my passion, and today's session is my passion as well. Couple of words about today's agenda and logistics. We will have presentation by our honorable speaker for 30-40 minutes, followed by the questions, Q&A sessions. The Q&A sessions will come from me as well as from you. So feel free to put your questions on the chat sections and we will be gladly answering them. This is my pleasure and honor to present Victor Antonio. Victor has earned his bachelor in electrical engineering and master's in business administration and built 20 years of career in top sales of executives before becoming a president of global sales and marketing for a 420 million company. He's author of 13 books about sales, influence, and motivation. He has founded a company which called Sales Velocity Academy, which is dedicated for the remote increase of sales, doing it more and faster. So warm welcome to Victor. Hello.
Lela, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm super excited. I'm so happy to have you here on this session.
Looking forward to it. Hello to everybody out there in the world. Love you. Good afternoon. I know it's evening over there. It's morning here in Atlanta, Georgia. But a special shout out to my Mila, Sela folks out there. Always got to see you. Hopefully we'll be able to travel again and go out there personally. All right. I'm going to jump into it. Is that okay, Lela?
Yes. Floor is yours.
All right. Let me just jump into it. And by the way, I've already taught you the first lesson. Well, I taught you 2 lessons already before I even got started. Here's a mistake a lot of people make when they get on some of these webinars. They never have something beautiful like this. Why did I put this picture up? Why did I put this picture up? Hit me in the chat. Write something in the chat. Why do you think I did that? And it's not so you wouldn't see this beautiful face, because I know you want to see the beautiful face. It's really because it's an opportunity. Sometimes we have one slide there, right? And it's an opportunity to create an impression. Georgie says, you are selling yourself. You are so right. And absolutely what you're saying, because it creates a first impression. So even use that beginning slide to create the first impression. Now, I'm going to get into a lot of content, but let me just give you some references here. I'm going to give you a, it's going to be basically a workshop. For some reason, I'm not getting, hold on one second. Want to make sure I get the right slide up there for you guys. Hold on. Oh, I saw it. By the way, my new technology, I'm switching boards. One more time. And hold on one second. There it is. So there's something I call the Sales Velocity Academy. I'm not going to get into the basics of sales, virtual sales, because I think you guys are smart enough to know a lot of this stuff already. But I will send you this tip sheet I've put together. So think of this course as the next level. Virtual engagement, how to engage the next level. So if you want the basics, Lela will send you the worksheet. You can have that. And so I'll get into some of the content right now. But here's a background, see a little background. When the pandemic hit here, it was March 2020, obviously. I knew we shut down like March 20th or something here in the United States, or at least in Georgia. And then, by the way, Atlanta, Georgia, US. And so we shut down in Georgia. And so what happened was I do a lot of public speaking, a lot of workshops. And then after like a month, I was like, uh-oh, this is going to get bad, because all the cancellations started rolling in. So I lost 90% of my business, 90 with a 9 and a 0% of my business. So I had to redo the whole studio. I jumped on board immediately with everything that had to go virtual. And by the way, if you guys want to see the studio, the full setup at the end, I'll give you a tour of the studio. You can see everything I use as I go through this, okay? Just for you. So my point is that virtual selling is not going away. Remote selling is not going away. Hybrid selling, whatever phrase you want to use, it's not going away. It's becoming part of the culture of selling. And whether you're a product manager, project manager, doesn't matter. We're always selling. We're selling our people on things need to get done. We need to hit certain milestones. We're always selling, whether it's a product, idea, service, even motivation. How do we sell that? So let's get into some of the content I want to give you today. I was reading a book called Virtual Selling by the Rain Group. Highly recommend the book, by the way. And they introduced a concept called the Ringleman Effect. Now, the reason I want to introduce you to the Ringleman Effect, because it's going to highlight how many people should actually be on your virtual conference to make it an effective meeting. So again, whether it's sales or a project manager talking to the team, the ideal number is interesting. So the Ringleman Effect is this. Kind of mentally think about it this way. You ever play like tug of war, two people pulling on a rope? And by the way, if you saw, how many people saw the Squid Game? Out of curiosity, if you saw the Squid Game, hit me with a 1, right? So if two people are pulling, Maria says, yeah, I love that. If two people are pulling on a rope, each person is committed 100% to pulling on that rope, right? But something interesting happens. When you add a second person on either side, the person after you actually commits a little less. In other words, you're pulling at 100, they're probably pulling at about maybe 97, 95%. If you add a third person, they're pulling less. So the more people you add, the less effort's being put. The person in the front's doing the most of pulling. So what they found out, again, the Rain Group, is that when we have in-person meetings, what they wanted to understand was, what's the engagement level? So engagement difficulty here is, for example, in a regular meeting, let me put my head up there, you can see me, perfect. And so what they found is that the ideal number for an in-person meeting is around 6. That's an interesting number. Now the question is, what is it in virtual time? And what they found that after 6, it gets real difficult. Notice difficulty increases, but notice what happens in a virtual meeting. That number is more like 3. So really, this is your ideal number for a virtual meeting. So what's the big takeaway here? The big takeaway is, let's make our meetings smaller groups. If you can have a smaller group meeting, it'll be that much more effective. So that's tip number 2. The first one, by the way, was have a cool slide. Don't just put a title slide, have something that leaves an impression. Tip number 3, you're gonna love this one. So when is the best time to have a virtual meeting? Well, for that, we go to a guy by the name of Daniel Pink, who wrote a book called When. Now I'm gonna give you the short version of this, but this is the best part I thought I pulled out of the book. What he said is that we all have what they call these circadian rhythms where our energy is high, our energy is low, our energy is high again. And if we understand that, then maybe we should think about how we organize our day. Now, here's an interesting thing. People don't have a time management problem. They have a performance management problem. Let me say that again. People don't have a time management problem. They have a performance management problem because at certain times of the day, you're like, I can do this. Other parts of the day, you're like, oh, Lord, right? So what he found is that in the morning, basically most of us have this rhythm right here, our circadian rhythm. In the morning from 7 to maybe almost 12, you're like, right? You're at peak. And then after midday, we've seen this, right? Wah, 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 wah. And you're like, not want to do any work. And then towards the end, maybe because the job's over, we're like, okay, I feel a little reinvigorated, right? So he also added this other layer. What should you be doing during these times? He said, hey, in the morning, do your analytical work. Your analytical work is like the stuff that requires high focus, right? Like if you really got to be in the conversation, that's when you do it. Then midday, when your brain is blah, right? What happens? Do what they call the low cognitive loading work. In other words, it doesn't require a lot of thinking. But interesting enough, towards the evening is where insight and creativity kick in. Now, here's a test for you. When should you have your meetings? Put that in the chat. When should you have your meeting? Give me should it be midday, morning, midday, late? Morning, put it in there, midday, late. And Giorgio says the whole day, I like you, but at the same time, I don't like you. Okay. By the way, the key is to have it mostly in the morning because that's when people are highly focused. In the book, they talked about how people are more optimistic when you talk to them, more forward-looking in the morning. In the afternoons, they basically become more pessimistic. So you really want to have a lot of your meetings in the morning. And I would argue you probably have some in the evening if you can afford to do that. So that's the next tip. Now, how do we get people to turn on the camera? We know for a fact that if the video is not on, it's going to be harder to close the deal. Now, let me highlight this. By close the deal, I mean advance it, move it to the next step. Again, product manager, project manager, salesperson, doesn't matter. How do we progress? How do we get some action items going? So here's what you want to do. You want to prime people, especially people you're talking to the first time. Here's how you prime them. Do what I do. I send them messages like this. Just send them an email reminder and notice what I put in it. Jill, looking forward to seeing you. It'll be great to finally put a face with the voice. I'm basically saying, you're going to have your camera on, right? Bill, looking forward to finally having a face-to-face conversation. So again, I get put the face to the voice. I'm basically implying that we're going to do video. And if they still don't get the hint, if they're just that hard-headed, they don't get the hint, you say something like this. By the way, in preparation for our meeting, please have your webcam on. So when you enter the video call, also make sure you unmute yourself. And last but not least, if you can use a pair of headphones, that's always going to matter. By the way, be very careful. Here's what's interesting about video conferencing. People can forgive the video a little bit. If it's a little fuzzy, you don't have the right, if it's a little pixelated, the right resolution, people can forgive that. What they can forgive is bad audio. It's too distracting. So if you're getting echo and things of that nature, get rid of it. By the way, for me, I'm just sharing this. I did an event when I first started doing virtual up here, and it was a $5,000 event. They were paying me $5,000, right, to do a virtual event just like this one. And 10 minutes in, my connection starts to die. And then I try to reconnect like 3 times. And then the customer says to me, you know what, Victor, we're going to have to just move on and bring on another speaker. And I lost $5,000. What did that do to me? I now have a direct gigabit Ethernet connection right into my computer. So I have 1 gig and I can measure it all the time. So if you have a product or service that really relies on you having great communication, may I suggest you invest in a direct connection. Anyway, so that's how you get people to kind of turn their camera on. Next tip just for you. All right, let's kind of tell people what we want. Let's tell them what we expect. In other words, let's get some upfront expectations, upfront meeting expectations. Again, I'm giving you a script. You set the tone by going first. Start the meeting, you go first. You say something like this. All right, can everyone give me a 60-second, commercial of who you are, what your role is, and what your expectation is for this meeting? I'll go first, right? And I'll say something like this. I'm the senior event coordinator. I'm here to show you our new fill in the service and how it might benefit you. What's my expectation for this meeting? At the end of the meeting, I just want your feedback on fill in the blank. I just set the expectation. I told them who I was, the role, and I set the expectation. And then I'll go, hey, Bill, in this case, Giorgio, give me your 60-second, who you are and what your expectation is. Now, what that does, it gives everybody a chance to talk. What that also does is sets the expectation table, right? Now you know, but here's the important part. You get a lot of G2. That's information for us in the US, right? You get a lot of G2 before you start your presentation. So if somebody says something that maybe is not in your presentation, you make a little note of it. Okay, let me make sure I talk about that so I can address that issue. So in other words, before you open your mouth, you know what you got to do. You know what's in the room. You know what the expectations are. Real simple strategy. Next strategy, I call this the back end expectation. The first one was the front end, what we do at the beginning, but I can also back end. Watch, this one's clever. I should charge you for this one. I really should. All right, now this one, you tell the group basically that at the end of the meeting, everyone has to option 1. Okay, at the end of this, what I want you to do is contribute 1 idea based on everything we've talked about. Now, what do you think happens when you do something like this? Everybody during the meeting has got to think about 1 idea because they know they're going to be asked for 1 idea. The other thing you can do is, again, you can just do this one. I want to ask you what you think about the product or service, and I want your opinion, and we'll go around the table at the end of the room. So please have at least 1 comment. And what you're doing, we call it, you're priming them. You're priming them that you're going to ask them something, and they're going to have to give you something at the end. So the expectation's already been set. Now, again, the front end expectation is you open it up to get to know everybody and what they want. And then you can do a back end expectation after that. So you can do them one after another. So after everybody introduces themselves, great. All right, now here's what I like at the end of the meeting. And then you do the back end expectation. Really easy to use, very powerful. And by the way, because everybody knows they have to do this, everybody leans in a little more. Everybody listens because, again, they want to have something to say at the end of the meeting. Now, also, when you start a meeting, let's begin with 2 endpoints. More specifically, have your endpoint defined. What's your endpoint, your call to action? What's your intent? What's your purpose? What do you want from this meeting? If you get on a call and you don't have an endpoint, your call to action, I call it, then you're going to waste your time. See, what happens is, think of an airplane. If this is the beginning of your presentation, right? And that's my crazy airplane, right? I didn't say I was an artist, okay? So it's like clouds. Okay, anyway, the plane lands like this, right? That's your endpoint. This is your call to action. What's the call to action? That's what you're going to ask them for. So in sales, if I know I'm going to ask them for something, I plan my approach in the presentation. I know how I'm going to start, what the body of the presentation will be, but most important, what the call to action is. In other words, you should really start with this. What do I want to ask? What do I want from this meeting? And then you basically build your presentation backwards. Let me give you an example of how I build presentations. So for example, this is something I like to use as a structure. I'm giving you some tools you can use here. When I build a presentation, by the way, each square is a slide, like in a PowerPoint presentation. So the first one is an intro, it could be about 1.5 minutes. Remember, put that cool slide up front. Again, it could be a new product or whatever it may be. And then each slide should be about 3 minutes. Some will be longer depending on, or shorter depending on the information or data you want to show. But keep in mind that on average, each slide should be about 3 minutes. So this is how you would structure a 30-minute presentation. Now I highlight 30 minutes because in a virtual conversations, what used to be done in 60 seconds should now be done in more like 30 minutes. And people will commit to 30 minutes, but notice what I'm going to define. I'm going to define right here, my call to action. What do I want? What do I want to ask at the end? And then I can work backwards and actually build the body of the presentation. Okay. By the way, give me a 1 if you like that. Give me a 0 if you don't like that. Give me a dash if you just feel neutral. Hit me with that. I'll see who comes out. I know George is going to come up without something. Okay. 1, my man. All right. So next, let's talk buying signals. Ooh, let's get into this right now. Man, you're doing a presentation and you got that person right there. Oh, whatever. You ever have that person? They're just not into it. They're just like her. They're just like her. You just want to just like strangle or just grab her by, wake up, and they don't wake up. The problem is you have the problem. When somebody's like this in a presentation, don't ever blame them. Blame yourself for not keeping them what? Alert and awake. So I'm going to show you how to make sure this does not happen to you and your audience. In other words, you know it's not going well when they don't ask questions. You know it's not going well when they don't ask questions. You know it's not going well when they ask the wrong questions. Like, what does that have to do with this presentation? And last but not least, when you're done, they have no questions. Don't you hate those presentations? You get to the end, there's like no questions. You're like crickets, and you're like, oh, what do I do now? Don't worry. That's why you're here. I'm going to show you what you do. All right. So here's what it is. Okay. So let's slow down here because I know I go fast. All right. We've entered the presentation. Cool slide. We got them to turn their camera on. They got the expectations. The expectations have been set, right? Now you also know what your call to action is. You know what you're going to ask them, right? And you've built out this presentation. Now, okay, that's good. You're like 50% of the way there, maybe 60. But now, how do we pull them into the conversation? How do we make sure they don't leave us in the conversation? I'm going to show you how. All right. First thing we have to do is understand how the brain works. So let me start here. You got to understand how this piece of machinery works. Now, when I do my presentations, I remember I did one at Mila, and I held up a candy, and the candy had a wrapper. And then what I did in the audience is I said, okay, everybody hold the candy. Everybody grab the candy with the wrapper, right? They grabbed the candy, and I said, open the candy up, put the wrapper in one hand, put the candy in the other hand. Everybody had the same candy, right? And I say something like this. The wrapper represents culture. I'll probably never really understand your culture because I wasn't born wherever you're at, right? So I put the wrapper to the side. That represents culture, which I'll never really understand. And then I hold the can and said, well, this represents your brain. And no matter where you go, this never changes. And if we can understand the brain, we can talk to people. Let me show you how the brain works. There was a gentleman by the name of Daniel Kahneman who basically studied this, won a Nobel Prize in economics, behavioral economics on this. And he said something interesting like this. I want to just give you the short version. He said, your brain basically has two systems, right? But he says there's the logical, emotional, and then there's survival, right? He said, system 2, he called this system 2 is survival, is the logical part. System 2 is survival. But right here, emotional, survival, safety, he says is system 1. Now, how do you think we make decisions? Is it system one, emotional survival, or system two, logical? What do you think? Hit me with a 1 or a 2, S1 or S2 right here. Do that. S1 or S2. Which one do you think drives behavior? And what he found is that Alenka got it correct. Most of us are driven first by system two. But as he talked about, how do you basically engage the brain? On the logical side, you have to make the message simple. In other words, the prefrontal cortex of your brain, the thinking part, has to have simple messages. Notice that my slides are not very complicated. They're very simple to understand. That's how you should communicate. The second part of the brain, the emotional part, right? The emotional part has to have impact. Now, what does impact mean? Like, what does it mean to me? So, for example, if I'm selling a product or service, I can talk about return on investment, return on assets, total cost of ownership, break-even points. But what part of the brain am I talking to? The logical side. But then if I say no, then I switch my presentation. Now, here's how it's going to impact you in your business. You're going to lose this much revenue, right? You have to probably lay off a lot of people, so forth and so on. It can really make it impactful. See the difference? Logic is information, left brain. Emotional is that, Now, the last part is safety. And this is just about survival, right? I'll put survival. What is survival? People want to feel safe with your product or service or whatever you're offering. If you're a project manager and you have somebody, you say, look, I need you to do this. They need to know, they need to feel safe that if they have problems, they can come to you. So we can explain it logically. We can show them the impact, what it means emotionally, but also the safety piece. How do we make them feel comfortable? So the brain is always looking for, how do I feel about this? And do I feel safe? Everybody gets the logical part. So that's basically how the brain works. Bear with me, I'm going somewhere with this, okay? So the brain works that way. Emotional survival really pushed the brain. Now, the second part of the brain class, how do you hold the brain's attention? Now, the brain is interesting. Let me ask you a question. If this is the brain's attention, this is attention right here over time. And let's say you're doing a 60-minute speech, 45-minute speech, right? Call that 45 minutes right there. 45 minutes. Let me ask you a question. Is it possible? Is it possible? If this is 100%, is it possible to hold somebody's attention at 100% for 45 minutes? Yes or no? Y for yes and for no. Y for yes and for no. Which one is it? What do you think? Is it possible? Giorgio, depends. Mostly no. He's a lawyer, I think, in the background, right? Anna says no. Lela says no. The answer is no. It's not possible. It's hard. It's really hard to do. Now, you've seen different types of speakers. Have you ever seen, let me use a different color. Have you ever seen a speaker who starts out really well? He starts out really well, but then it just goes, it just dies. You ever see that type of speaker just goes, shoo? I don't know why my board is drawing this little artifact here. I'll erase that. Okay, let me just erase that so I get a clean slate. But in other words, can you keep somebody at 100%? No. Most people start talking and then they die like this. Other people, they're real good, but then they start getting really bad in the middle. And then they'll say something like this. In conclusion, or as I close out, as I show you my last slide, what does your brain do? Oh, let me pay attention because he's what? Finishing up. And they go back up. So these are different types of presentations. So the question is, how can I hold a person's presentation in an engagement, in a conversation like this? What happens is the following. Let me clear the board. What happens is the following. This is, by the way, if you don't remember anything else of what I talked about, I want you to remember this. This is the big one. Is it possible to hold somebody at 100%? The answer is no. What happens is, but let's see right here is 80%. Let's say it's 80%, right? We'll put that line right there. Now what happens is people start talking, you start talking, and then their attention starts to what? Dip. Now when their attention dips, you have to insert what I call a pattern interrupt. A pattern interrupt basically pushes them back up. For example, I can ask a question right there. Is a question a pattern interrupt? The answer is yes. And then their attention goes back up and it starts to drop again. And then I can show a video. Do you think their attention will kick back up? Yes, it'll kick back up. And then I can show, I don't know, a graph. right? I can highlight a graph, or goes back up and I can do that. So in other words, what I do is I cycle people by asking questions, showing them videos. So let me see, we have questions. Give me some pattern interrupts in the chat. Give me some pattern interrupts. We have what? Questions you can ask. We talked about video. What else can you do? What else can you do to grab their attention? Poll. You can take a little poll, a little survey. What else can you do? Okay, got it. What else can you do? How about a demo? You can do a demo right in the middle. What else can you do? Interact with participants, which could be a question, right? Could be a question, or just, Mariella says, tell a joke. You can add humor. I saw somebody write the word story. You guys get it. You guys understand. So if I do that, let's say every 3 to 5 minutes, you time it yourself. You figure out what the timing is. If we do that every 3 to 5 minutes and we plan this out, what happens is you have a more engaging presentation. Let me show you how you bring it all together. Let me show you how to pull it together. Remember this slide? Let me go full screen. You remember this slide, right? So what I can now do, by the way, somebody said, Nawal says body gestures. You are so right. You are so right. If I planned out my presentation like this, what I can say is, right here, I'm going to ask him a question. Right here, I might show a video. And then maybe right here, I'll do a little poll. And I definitely want to close out with a good story. And all of a sudden, you can plan it out. This is exactly how I do my presentations when I do big stages. So all it requires is you to really just think about planning these things out. And I'm telling you, it works. Without a doubt, it works. By the way, pattern interrupts or anything. Is this a pattern interrupt? Yes or no? Is that a pattern interrupt? Of course it is. That's exactly why I do it, because it's a pattern interrupt. I'm changing the view, right? So by changing the view, like, okay, what's he showing now? What's he doing now? When I write on the board, is that a pattern interrupt? Yes, like, what's he gonna write? What's he gonna draw, right? And again, you can be standing up, or if you can be sitting down, as somebody already mentioned, you can stand up and do something different. All these things help. So keep this in mind that even in a virtual presentation, you can do this. By the way, you don't have to have a smart board like this. You can use a regular whiteboard and just use it appropriately, okay? Now, so take a deep breath, because here we're closing this out. Take a deep breath. We're closing out a little bit here, okay? Now, so we've done all this work, right? We've set them up at the beginning, got the expectations set up. Again, we got the expectations in. We actually planned out our presentation. We know what the call to action is. We laid out the presentation. We got the pattern interrupts in, and now you're going in for the close. And again, it doesn't matter. Project manager sales, doesn't matter. You're going for the ask. And one of the things I hate is when I get off a call and I don't get an answer. See, in sales, there's something called advancing the sale or continuing the sale. This is important. When you advance the sale, you take it to the next step. You go to the next step. When you continue the sale, that means they didn't make a commitment. Let me get back to you. Let me talk to my boss, right? They do that. That's continuing a sale. That's never a good thing, because the chance of you getting back in front of them again go down dramatically. So we want to advance the sale every time. We want to advance the activities, the progress with our team. We want to move to the next stage. We want some commitment, is what I'm saying in general. So how do you do that? Now, you have two scenarios: when you're selling something or when you're talking to an individual, right? Doing a presentation like this. So let's say you're talking to your boss. You're a project manager, right? You're a project manager. You're talking to your boss. You're trying to get more budget money. Is that a good scenario? I think so, right? You're trying to get some more budget, right? Because you just don't have enough, and they're so demanding. Now, you're going to do this presentation to your boss. And when you get to the end, you're going to say, yeah, are there any questions, right? Are there any questions? And when they say there are no questions, it feels very awkward, because you're like, you don't know where to go. I'm going to show you how you take control of a meeting like this. Here's what you're going to do. I'm going to walk you through this. Now, here's what you do. You get to the end of the presentation. Do you have any questions? And let's say they say no. Now, this is the second most important thing I'm going to show you today. They're going to say, let's say her name is Jane. Jane says, no, Victor, I like what you showed me. I don't have any questions. What do you do? Come on, somebody in the chat. What do you do? What do you do? They go, no, I don't have any questions. What do you do? What do you say? Come on, somebody. Be bold, be brave, give me something. What do you say? What do you do? What do you say? What do you do? Come on, somebody in the chat. I'm begging you. You'll ask the question by yourself. I think it says. Let me see if I get the full of that one. Okay, yourself, you ask a question. That's right. And get to the call to action. Now, you did the call to action already. You got the call to action in. Oh, I love it. And get to the call to action. What we discussed today, kind of partial. Okay, let me give you what I think you should do. You take control. Listen to this. You take what? Control of the conversation. Okay, just grab that conversation. Don't be afraid to grab the conversation. I say something like this. I said, Jane, can I ask you a question? What do you think they're going to say? They always go ahead. Sure, why not? It's like a Pavlovian dog. Ding, salivate. They always do that, right? So then you say something like this. Jane says, sure. I said, when I finish the presentation, call to action, and there are no questions, I give them a choice. Now, the human brain is fascinating. When you give them a choice, they're forced to choose, right? So you say something, when I finish the presentation, and there are no questions, Jane, it's either because A, I said, I've explained this so well, you just need to think about it. Or number two, you're simply not interested. Which is it? Now, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to get a commitment here. I don't want to have another meeting. You saw what I presented. I know that the chances of getting another meeting are not likely. I want a commitment, one way or another. Are you interested or are you not interested? So I'll say this, I've explained this so well that you need to think about it, or is it simply that you're not interested? Now, if somebody says that they're not interested, it's not for them, then what you do at that point is you stop selling it. You simply ask, may I ask why? Now, let them know that you're not going to sell. You're not pushing anymore. At this point, you stop. Because now what you're going to do is gather intelligence. Why aren't you interested? It may be in the case of selling that you're talking to the wrong person. So now you know that in the future, maybe I shouldn't talk to that persona. Instead of talking to HR, I should be talking to the VP of sales. Or maybe they just bought a new system, a new product, whatever it may be. But you grab information and you move to the next meeting, okay? But at least you gather intelligence so that in your next meeting, your next interaction, you'll be smarter. You just get smarter. Now, let's say it's a project you're trying to sell to your boss and the boss says, I'm not interested. You say, may I ask why? And now it's an opportunity for you to figure out what the alignment should be. What is your boss, your management team interested in? And then how can you best align your product pitch next time so it fits what they're aligned with, or you can be aligned with them. So if they're not interested, you stop selling, you gather information, you get smarter, and you come back another day. That's all you can do. But the majority of people, I'll say 80% of the people, easy, will say, Victor, I just need to think about it. Now, if they say, let me think about it, what do you say? Hit me in the chat. I say to you, you gave me the call to action. Let me think about it. Let me just think about it. Georgie, give me something, man. Give me something. You got some cool paintings in the background. Give me something. You got the pilot thing going on, the whole bit, man. Give me something. Somebody said, let me think about it. What do you say? Set up a date, the commitment. Come on. Who's brave enough? All right, I'm going to help you guys here because we got to keep this moving. Here is the script I came up with that I think is the ultimate let me think about it script. When I say the ultimate let me think about it script, I'm talking about what? The ultimate let me think about it script. All right, now, I don't usually share this with just anybody, but I'm going to share it with you for one reason and one reason only. Why? Because I love you. Okay, you may not believe that, but I'll still show it to you anyway, right? So here it is. When somebody says, let me think about it, I usually say this. I'll say something like this. Let me go big screen here. And again, you can play with the wording. I said, Jane, when someone tells me, that they need to think about it, it's usually because, again, they're not interested. Now, by the way, this is when somebody said, I need to think about it. Remember, the first one we talked about, they said, I'm not interested. In that case, gather the information, come back another day. But when somebody says, no, Victor, I like it, I just need to think about it. I said, Jane, when someone tells me, let me think about it, it's usually because, again, they're not interested or they're interested but not sure. Now, again, what am I trying to do? Qualify them. Are you interested or not? So if they say, let me think about it, Victor, I said, okay, it's either that you're not interested, and we know what that answer, what to do there. But what if they say, no, Victor, I'm interested, I'm just not sure at this time. Where do you go, right? Most people say, well, you set up another date, another time. But the thing is, you may not get another shot at the apple. You may not get another, opportunity to talk to that person again for quite a while. You need to know before you leave there. If you don't have an answer, you've continued the sale. You've not advanced it. We want to advance. We want to know. We got to know. We want to know. So I say something like this. So when she'll say something like this. No, Victor, I'm interested. I'm just not sure at this time. Great. I'll say this again. Watch me take control of the conversation again. I'll say something like this. Look, I'm glad you're interested, Jay. Notice I'm reaffirming that she's interested. With past clients, I've learned 3 reasons why they're not sure, because she's telling me she's interested but not sure. There's usually 3 reasons people are not sure. The first one is that they don't see this product, service, project as a fit. Is that it? Now, they got to go yay or nay on that one, yes or no. I say, no, Victor. It's what we're looking for. It's kind of what we had in mind. So I see how the project has value. Now, again, now she says it's a fit. Well, maybe there's some feature or functionality, some characteristic that maybe we didn't offer. Is that it? And they're probably going to say, no, it has all the features or the functionality. It's what we're looking for. I don't think you missed anything. Then I'll say something like this. Well, she'll say, no, it has all the essential features. It has what we're looking for. You've shown me all the data I think is necessary. So in my mind, I'm going, if it's a fit and it has all the features and functionality you need, I'm left to believe with the last one. If it's a fit and it has the features, then maybe it's more of a finance issue. Is that it? Now, notice what I did. I start global. Is it a fit? Yes. Is it a product fit? Features, functionality? Yes. Is it a financial fit? And now they have to go yay or nay. And maybe you'll get, yeah, it's just more than I expected. And then it's really outside our budget. Well, then we can have a budget discussion. Now, those are 3 F's I've given you. Warning, there's a 4th F. So there's fit, feature, functionality, finance. The 4th F, if they say, no, Victor, we have the money, it's the budget, but we just need to think about it. If you've gone through those 3 and you got nothing, the 4th F is the back of the brain. Remember that little survival piece? There was a logical, emotional, survival, safety piece. The 4th F is fear. Something in your presentation didn't reduce their anxiety. Something in your presentation didn't reduce their fear. I always say sales is about certainty and anxiety. Our job is to increase certainty and reduce anxiety in a presentation. Certainty, reduce anxiety. And if they're afraid, it's because you didn't reduce the anxiety or you didn't make it feel certain enough for them to make a buying decision. And that is how you get to know how to pitch this. In other words, when we get to the end, the call to action, let's make sure that we have an answer. Let's not walk out of that meeting without knowing. I don't like not knowing. I hate, let me think about it. Again, let me think about it is continuing the process. Getting an answer is advancing it one way or another, good or bad. So, final slide, summarizing the quick tips. Let me know if you agree. First one, small groups are more effective when it comes to making decisions and also getting interaction, by the way. Best time to meet, you can judge for yourself. I'm just giving you the data. Next, number 3, set the expectations. Remember, get the video on and what the outcome is. Remember, front end, back end, set the expectation. Define your purpose. Why are we on this call? What are you trying to get out of the other person? What are you trying to get out of your managers, out of your employees, whatever it may be, your boss? Next, use pattern interrupts. We've talked a lot about different pattern interrupts. By the way, me asking you a question and asking you to get something in the chat, is that a pattern interrupt? It is, right? On top of that, remember, we want to advance the sale, don't continue the sale. And the last part, which I don't talk about a lot, but I want to emphasize here is don't lower your standards. Here's what I mean. A lot of people get on a virtual call like this and they have horrible lighting, horrible background, and you think it's okay. You have to understand that this is the new suit or the new dress. This is your first impression. So I'm going to ask you, whatever your background is, whatever your setup is, let's raise our game. Let's be better than everybody else. So when they jump on the call and they see this, they're like, whoa, this is a professional. On that note, again, I'll send you guys that worksheet. You can find out more information at the Sales Velocity Academy. And on that note, I thank you and I hand it back over to Lela.
Wow.
I think I stayed within my time.
It's always, Victor. It was so impressive,
Thank you.
to the point. I'm just really, really, really glad that we are having this conversation, and all the tips. Actually, I think audience will agree that all the tips were so practical. Any of those tips can be implemented immediately, and I'm really, especially the project managers. I always say that we sell ideas, we sell projects every day on every meeting that we are conducting. Especially, it is difficult. This is very difficult in this remote virtual world because we are not prepared. We have different skills. First of all, some of the project managers don't really have a good sales skills in general, and now we are selling it remotely, so it's additionally. So what would be my question, the closing question? What would be the practical, what would be the recommendation for project managers? Do the exercises, use them, or how to behave, because those steps are pretty logical, step by step, but should we do it exercise every time? So prepare for the meeting, prepare for the presentation. What would be your recommendation?
I think the simplest thing is to ask you is, what is the call to action? If you don't have a defined call to action, everything else becomes very difficult, because your call to action defines what content in your presentation has to be placed. But then you layer on top of that, okay, when do I present? Because then it becomes about sequencing the presentation, right? So call to action, put your presentation together, you sequence it. Like for this presentation, I think I talk fast. So I'm going to just give you my numbers here. I have, without the title slides, it's about 17 slides, right? But I know how fast I talk and how fast I want to hit the information. So I know how to time my presentations. If I got 20 slides, that'll probably be about 45 minutes. So tip number one, begin with the end in mind, very basic. Next, lay out your presentation, step number 2. Step number 3, then sequence the presentation. What should I show first? What should I show second, third, fourth, and then ask. And then where do I use my pattern interrupts? Maybe you only have 2 or 3. That's fine. If you can just do that, you're ahead of the game. And then you have to find your way to look, because this is harder. You know, in this little box here, it's hard. So everybody has to kind of come up with their own style, their own way of presenting. Like for me, I noticed I don't like sitting down, and I don't like screen sharing, which is why I did this. But before I had this, I had a whiteboard, and that whiteboard worked real well for me. So find your own style of presenting and feel very comfortable doing that. But again, don't forget the structure of the presentation, and then find your style. And number 3 is make it look good. Really impact people. It's like, you know, like I said, I see people show up, they got poor lighting, you know, you can see half their face. They look like they're in the witness protection program or something like that. And I'm like, you're blowing it. It's your first impression.
Right, amazing. Actually, you promised to show us your office, how it is laid out. I myself tried to set it up for a long time with the lightings, with I don't know, everybody who can help me with. So it's not easy, especially when you're doing it for the first time and you are not really technically savvy. And not everybody has the cabinet or the room. They have to combine sometimes bedroom with something and so on. So it's not easy.
Well, the thing is, you know, a year and a half ago, I think it was much harder. Today, I think it's easier because a lot of companies, there's a company I really like called Elgato, Elgato, and they make a lot of what I call low profile equipment. Like their lighting is about that thin and like that, and you can put them on your desk and get beautiful lighting. So Elgato, just check them out. A lot of great equipment. So you want to see the studio. Let me see if I can, Victor, could you provide your role and the company you work for in that chat? Hold on one second. So I'm gonna show you the studio first. I'm gonna see how this works. I haven't shown my studio in a while, okay? So I'm gonna see how this works. Hold on. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but I'm gonna try. Let me see. Let's see. And I don't have it, okay, just bear with me. I'm about to show it to you. I think it's this right here. Well, I might not be able to bring it up. Now, hold on one second. Don't give up. Don't give up on me yet. Wait. Wait, don't give up on me. Don't give up on me. We'll try one more time. Can you see the picture? Let me see. 3, There it
Yeah.
is. All right. So this is like, man, look, God, it looks really messy over there, but it's not that messy. Okay. So I got a TV right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's got a camera above it with a ring light, right? You got to see
Mm-hmm.
the ring light, but then you see, if you look up upper right where the time is at, you can see that. Now, this right here is a shotgun mic. I have two microphones actually. When I'm doing a podcast and I'm shooting this way, I go, hey, this is Victor Antonio. Welcome to the Sales Influence Podcast, right? So then I swing that out and then I come back to this one. This one allows me not to have a lavalier mic. It allows me to move. The chair's here, by the way, when I do my podcast. So I just sit here and do the podcast. Speaker right there. I mean, it's not that many. So, and then, I got a switcher right here. Can't really zoom in, but the switcher allows you to just do that and bounce around. So that's it. One microphone, two microphone, a television camera. And if you're wondering what that chair's in the corner, it's when I'm waiting. Like if it's a big event, I just sit in the corner. I just wait. I watch the TV, wait for my turn. So yeah, that's it. That's the equipment right there. Not too difficult, right? I mean, I started in my closet over here. By the way, you'll notice a clock over there. You see it on the wall up
Yes.
there. So when I'm presenting like this, I actually cheat and look at the clock over here. Because sometimes I can't see, I don't want to look at the clock here. So I cheat. I look at the clock over there and I can see the clock. So that's why it's positioned over there. And that's it. This is a smart board. I got that connected to the computer. And then these absorb sound. So they're like foamy stuff, just foam. So it absorbs the sound so you don't get echo. And that's how I get it. And in the back, you can't see it, but there's a green screen in the back. The whole wall is green. This is yellow. That wall is green. So I can just turn the equipment this way. Now I have a green screen and that's it. How's that?
Amazing, amazing. It is so well structured. Thank you so much. So
By the way,
we
can I just add, Lela? There was
Yes.
a lot of mistakes made putting this together. I got a closet over there with so many things that I just like, that didn't work. I'll never buy that again. So you go through a lot of mistakes, but once you get it, it's worth it.
Yes, it's really worth it. And I think in this world, we will continue having the remote meetings and remote presentations and webinars, and it will stay, and we have to adapt as much as possible. People have a fear of giving presentation. And in addition, now we have a fear of being on video, on camera, how it presented. So it adds up, everything adds up. So we have questions here. Before we send the, so Emil from Azerbaijan, Baku, before meeting, we send mail with some presentation, how long it needs to be, how much details needs to be in the first presentation to get attention, to get meeting.
Okay.
So it's like investment question.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's a tough question to ask because it depends on what you're trying to do. So before the meeting, if we send an email with some presentation, how long should it be? It depends. I mean, if you've talked to them over the phone, and you're just the email is just a follow-up. Okay. The email is like, we've already set the meeting up already. So I've set it up, through a phone call, and I'm basically saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. So that's how I use that email I showed you. And it says, how much details need to be in the first presentation to get attention? So, okay. So you're talking about a two-step process. You're saying, hey, the first one is to grab their attention. And the second one is, to really get into the presentation. The basic is ask people for a 15-minute presentation. And then the people are more likely to commit to a 15. A strategy you can use that I train on that works very well is that if I say, hey, Emil, can I get 60 minutes of your time? If you're on the phone, I can do this. And you say, no, Victor, I don't have an hour. Well, can we at least do 15? 15 is going to be easy in and out. What about that? And most people would say yes to the 15 very quickly. But the 15 always turns into 30, maybe 45. So I don't know how to answer that one because it would depend on your sequence. Did you call them first? Have you talked to them? Then send the email. If you've not talked to them, you've not called them, well, you just can't ask for a meeting because they don't know you. So they're going to say no. So how much planning have you done before that? In other words, did you warm them up? Is it a warm call, a warm email? But if it's a cold email, the majority of people are going to say no. That's what I've found. Sorry, it's the best I have.
So we have a question from Marella. Could you provide your role?
The company you work for in the chat. So I think you asked me about what I do today. So my name is Victor Antonio. I am a sales trainer and speaker. You can find me at victorantonio.com. My company's called the Sellinger Group. And I work with companies, small and big, on training people on how to be more effective at selling, whether it's remote or face-to-face. That's my presentation. And I'm pretty good. And I'm pretty good.
Yes, 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 yes.
You're welcome.
Wow. Wow, wow.
Okay.
It was amazing. It was so great. And actually, as promised, I think 1 hour is getting to the close. If there are any questions, please come up with the questions. Victor taught us. Do you have any questions?
Yeah. By the way, I'll add that, when you look at the data, what's happening right now, and I'll just talk this in case anybody wants to ask a question. What's happening right now is companies have discovered during this pandemic, now post-pandemic almost, is that a lot of companies are not going to go back. The number of people selling face-to-face is going down. It was already going down. Now I think it's declining a little faster. And what's happening is that the world of hybrid selling, face-to-face and virtual, is now the new normal. And so this is not going away. And so you really need to invest in your game. By this, I mean your sales game, your remote game. What's also interesting is that companies are finding that their cost structures are more profitable. In other words, one company I talked to, their sales dropped 10%, but their cost of sales, what it costs to do business, went below like 50% because nobody's traveling anymore. They're all doing it remotely. And so if you work for a company right now and you're required to do remote selling, I would really try to sell your boss on letting you set up. I mean, not something like this. You could do something for like less than $1,000 and have a great look. But maybe, ask for money. Or other companies I've worked with, I've told them to take one of their offices and make it a Zoom studio. And so like that, anybody can use it and everybody looks like a professional. You got the corporate branding in the background. And again, for $1,000, you guys can look like a pro if you work for a company. That might be something you want to sell your manager on.
That's a great idea. I think it's really, really worth $1,000 to have a professional look and present the company, because it tells a lot about company, how they care about the sales and salespeople, and how their image is presented. So it's a really great tip.
I can't emphasize enough. I've had people like, I do this all the time, and then as soon as I do this, they have that look like what am I looking at? And boom, first impression is already, well, that's the second impression. The first impression was the graphic. The second impression was this. And they're like, okay, this guy's a professional. I've actually had people say that, oh, you're a pro. I'm like, yeah, I like to think so. And again, it sets the standard. Let me see, I'm seeing the questions also. How to approach for a virtual meeting? That's Rajneesh. I love the question, but it's too broad. And by the way, there's 2 books out there that I highly recommend. One is by Jeb Blunt called Virtual Selling, and one is by the Rain Group, Virtual Selling. 2 great books to kind of get you going. And again, I have courses on the Sales Velocity Academy. I have an engagement course, and I have a Studio 101 course that I walk through all the equipment with you. And again, you don't have to buy the expensive stuff. You can do it for less than $1,000 easy.
Great. And thank you for sharing. We have questions from Eka. How to make sentences smart, concise, and less wordy?
Oh, I like Eka. I don't know who you are, but I like you. Because you're like me. I hate a lot of words. I'll say this, and Leila's going to cut me off right now. One of the things I've noticed when I go like to the Gulf states or the Middle East, people just like to talk. Like, man, they talk a lot, but they don't say a lot. Hit me with a 1. Give me a 1 if you know what I'm talking about in the chat. And you know what I mean? They just, you're like, get to the point, and your head just starts doing this. It feels like a newborn baby. And so what I've learned to do is when I do my presentations, I try to squeeze down the words, and notice my graphics are very minimalist. There's not a lot going on, because remember, your slides should support what you're saying, not the other way around. People use their slides to explain everything. Well, if it explains everything, why do you need me? So always try to keep this at a minimum, and then so they can pay attention to you talking. And so that's always a good way of looking at it. But I would just try to find ways to say things simply. I reword a lot of stuff, rephrase a lot of things in my head. And so what I do is when I practice my slides, Eka, I go through it, I go, what do I say here? When I go through this, okay, so this one, okay. And notice I did, I think, 7 tips on this one, and they were very concise. Boom, 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 boom. Very simple. And again, if you look at a lot of these slides, they're very simple. Let me think about it. I also animate. I hate when people put the whole script up. Like if I just put the whole thing up like this, what do you start doing? You start reading it. But by animating, you have to wait. And then now I can guide the conversation. I can say, da-da-da, let me, not interesting. Now, here's what you're going to say. You give it more drama, right? Now, they say this. Okay, now we know. You see what I'm saying? You just add more character to that. So great question. Let me go to the end
Thank
here.
you. Georgi is asking, what switches are you using?
Georgie, I use an ATEM Mini, ATEM. So that's, I'll put it ATEM Mini is what I use. I just put that in there. And I think it's like $199. And it has 4 HDMI inputs. You can have 4 different sources and you can just flick through all 4 of them. So this one has camera 1, then it has this one, that's number 2. Then it has that over there, number 3, and I don't have the 4th one hooked up. But that allows you to do quick switching. You can do it with software, but I just like the ATEM Mini is pretty cool. And it does this, what I like about this, it has this picture-in-picture thing right here. And I can move my head around. So sometimes I'm in the way of the graphic, so it allows me to do that. Good question.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. It was so impressive. I'm really thrilled. It was so cool. I cannot express it. And the call of action will be for the attendees. Join us for next meetings. We'll have live sessions coming next week at the end of the November. Please join us, and we will try to use all the tips Victor recommended today. Thank you, Victor. Thank you very much. It was really amazing workshop, and I know that everybody will be jumping onto your site. We will be sending the to-dos and not to-dos tip sheets from you, the recommended books to those who attended today's session. So wait for our follow-up mail. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
By the way, can I say one thing before you sign off? Before you sign off,
sure.
I gotta say one thing. Everybody give Lela a nice thank you, because she was like me. She contacted me on Instagram, LinkedIn, my email. She kept nagging me like, come on, do something in a beautiful way. So give her a big thank you. Lela, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Victor. Thank you. And have a nice day.